Okay. We are live. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're delighted to have our friend Janet Evanovich with us. Originally, it was going to be live, but we're delighted in any way we can have her virtually this evening. She's going to be discussing her brand new book, Going Rogue, and Janet has been kind enough to sign a whole batch of them for us. And I'll go ahead and put a link in the comments field. We also have these cool bookmarks. And if you're in the store, chocolate. We've been going through that chocolate pretty fast, Janet. That's just the staff too. Yeah, if you have questions for Janet, go ahead and put them in the comments field, and I'll be happy to ask any questions you might have. I think that's it. Barbara, over to you.
Thank you. I think we're missing keychains. Don't we also have keychains?
Yeah, I know we did, because I've been on tour and there were keychains, which are really cool. They did a really nice job on them. And the chocolates are amazing. The foil is embossed and the little chocolates have Going Rogue on them. And
right,
I'll run downstairs and find one and bring it and show it. And we also have some copies of Recovery Agent still, some signed copies. And I'm sure Barbara will get into it, but we're looking forward to hearing an update on book 2 in that series.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll disappear into the darkness until you call me back.
Thank you. I actually put a photo of the cool chocolate in the gold foil on Instagram. They look great. So Janet, you're just back from or you've just finished up with the Texas Book Festival. What's it like? Are people actually coming back to doing live events like that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they said that they had 250 authors there. I never actually got, which is really a shame because, it's like you're on book tour and you're just hopping around the country, but I never actually got to see what the festival was. I was in an off-site place and, but we had a crowd. We had a lot of people there. It was great. And so I think people are coming back. They, every now and then someone walks through with a mask, but for the most part, people just seem like they're happy to be done with COVID and they're just gonna, go on with lives and everywhere on tour, the crowds have been good. It's really been nice to be back out there.
Well, I know you really like that. You've been wonderful with the crowds that we've had when you've been here. Tucson has a festival of books in March, and I was just curious, what to expect if you felt like people were enthusiastic about showing up again.
Yeah, no, from what I could see, and certainly from my event, I didn't know what to expect. I thought, anywhere from 5 to 50 to, who knows, but it was packed. We had a lot of people.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really cheered to hear that. So we talked to you last March when you were in Hawaii about the Recovery Agent, when you introduced a new character. And I wanted to ask you if you thought writing the Recovery Agent played in at all to writing Going Rogue. Did it, because a lot of people, I was looking at comments about the book, talked about the plot, that they felt that there was, this was a slightly more plot-driven Plum at Plum 29. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I think that anytime I take an excursion away from Plum and I come back to it, because from time to time I've done that, the Wicked series, and I've had several of these little mini series going. And when I come back to Plum, I always think it affects it, because first of all, I see Plum with a fresher eye. I think that I know a little bit more about Stephanie because I've been in some other woman's head for a while. So, and I think even with the plot line in here, just the fact that, I had the freedom to write this larger adventure story. And I think that when I came back and I wanted to write Plum, I think, I do. I think it affected it because there's a coin involved. It's from a board game, The Treasure of Gawa. And that really is what, people are looking for. But it's still a plum. And one of the things that was fun about this book was that Connie played a larger role because Connie has been the office manager, since book one, but we don't always see a lot of Connie. And actually, we didn't see a lot of her here either because Connie was kidnapped. But still, it was Connie's book to some extent, and she had a good role at the end of the book too, I thought.
She does. And the other character that got a lot of play in this book that we haven't seen quite so much of in action is Bella, Morelli's grandmother, with her wicked eye and her Sicilian background.
She
so you decided to give her
the eye. Yeah.
Yep, the eye, right. So Grandma Missoura's always been, like a major player, but I thought it was great that Bella got to come in. Did you, intend that from the beginning, or when you wrote this, did it sort of reveal other roles that could be amplified?
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring Bella in, from the beginning. It was another character that, kind of popped up as the series has been going on, and maybe never received, a whole lot of attention. She's been, kind of a walk-on here and there, but I thought she's a lot of fun, and I wanted to have more of Bella. And I think watching Stephanie interact with Bella was interesting, because one of the things that I wanted to do with this book, I thought it was time for Stephanie to have some self-realization, for her to start taking a look at herself as a bounty hunter and maybe thinking, I'm not so bad at this job. Because we always portray Stephanie as, being kind of fumbling, and she's an amateur, and she's been an amateur for, I don't know 29 years. And, but the reality is that she succeeds, and that she has gotten better. I mean, she's never going to be Ranger. She's never going to be, the world's best bounty hunter. But she has achieved a certain amount of success in that field. And I wanted her to understand that in this book. And Bella kind of helped that. We sort of see some of Stephanie's humanity, I think, with Bella, because Stephanie and Bella have this sort of strange, chemistry going between them, with Bella always calling her the slut. And, but we get to understand that Bella might not quite mean that in the end, because they do kind of work together in some ways in this book.
Well, Stephanie, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but Stephanie and Bella have a great exchange towards it's not a spoiler to say that Stephanie survives this book, number 29, in order to get to 30. So but I like the way they played off each other just at the very end of the book, which will be fun for readers when they get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you've written, this is the 29th Plum. I also have noticed there was some anxiety about, whether there would be Plum number 30. So, you're not, why were people nervous about that? Is there any
I don't know.
Somehow it's ending?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because, 30 is kind of like a benchmark number. And people thought, I have no idea. There was never any anxiety on my part. I had a contract, I just keep going. Maybe it's the change. Have you noticed that silver is the new red?
I have, but I was going to let you bring it up. I think it looks terrific. Why the change? Did you just get bored?
No, I just got tired of the tedium, of maintaining the red. And, I'm seeing more and more women going to their natural hair color. And I thought, if Mae Musk can do it, damn, I can do it too. I mean, the Queen of England had beautiful white hair until the very end. So I thought I'd give it a shot and see how I felt about it. And, I like it. I kind of like it. I think it's fun. Next month I could be red again. I don't know, but right now I'm enjoying this. I could be purple. I love all the different hair colors. I love that women are starting to feel like they have the freedom, to be playful with their hair, and put a little lavender in it, or, a couple green streaks. You could see maybe next year, maybe next year, that'll be me.
You could do it. You could streak it to match your scarf or something. We did a charity event this weekend where there were 850 women or something. And I did notice how many women had color in their hair. Longer, mostly it was women with longer hair, because then it sort of trailed along, but there were some short, and why not? As you say, I think the pandemic, people didn't go to the hairdresser or didn't do a lot of things, and that was an incentive, to stop coloring your hair.
Yeah, well, I found out I like not going to the hairdresser all the time. I don't have time. I don't have time I'm a working girl,
I know.
I don't have time for that. So I think you see a lot of the longer hair with the streak color, and a lot of that is extensions too, that you see.
You do, and I haven't got the patience to deal with those. I find myself even resenting, although I think one really has to go in for pedicures and so forth. I mean, it's, just personal maintenance, but I find myself even resenting that time away because I could use it so much more productively. And then I got trapped in front of a TV that was filled with all campaign commercials. And I thought, that's like a seventh circle of hell to have to sit there and watch these. So
yeah, that's not relaxing. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I get a pedicure and a manicure regularly, and I sit there cracking my knuckles, making lists of all the things that I could be doing. And then I get it done at a spa. I mean, and they do, I have to say, a fantastic job, but it's a spa. And so, I come and I'm in, I'm in like a, sort of a sweatshirt and a ball cap. And all these ladies are sitting there in their fluffy white robes, and they're all, having tea. And I'm just sitting there like, let's go, okay, I haven't got all day to do this. I don't want a fluffy white robe. I just want you to do my toes. So
I know the concept of a spa day is almost impossible for me to understand. The only time I ever do it is if I'm on a cruise or some sort of a trip, and then it's okay, but we'll see.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about going rogue and the instigating incident, which I love, which is that, well, you tell it. It's your story.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk about it too much, because I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't read it yet. But yeah, Stephanie comes in one morning into the bail bonds office, and Connie isn't there, and Connie is always there. And she realizes that the office has been sort of ransacked. And so as the story progresses, we learn that indeed Connie has been kidnapped, and that the bad guys are looking for this special coin. And that carries throughout the entire series. I mean, that is what the book is about, is rescuing Connie. And then when they finally rescue Connie, then they have to rescue Vinny. And then Stephanie is, well, I'm not going to go on, but it goes on and on and on. It was a fun book to write. It really was, because I had an opportunity to keep raising the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I plot out a book and I think this is going to be great. And then as the book goes on, I'm like, oh man, I'm working really hard at this book. This is going to suck. Everybody's going to be disappointed in this book because I don't know where to go from here. But this book kind of wrote itself. I really knew where it was going all of the time. And it's always good, because I write with a lot of humor. You have to be careful with humor, because it can really get tedious if that's all there is. Mm-hmm. You have to have other stuff. You have to have a little bit more meat in there. And I would never say that I'm a really meaty writer. I'm never going to be invited to be on Oprah or anything. But I had some very good advice from one of my editors when I first started. And he said, when the book gets boring, kill somebody. And so, yeah. And I thought that was really good advice, so I always make sure that I, kill a bunch of people. And if you can't kill them, at least kidnap them.
Excellent advice indeed. But so if it's a kidnapping, you said the two big questions then become who and why. Who did the kidnapping, and why would they? Especially kidnapping an adult. I mean, with a child, there's a lot of sinister reasons that come into mind right away. But to kidnap a mature adult is not quite so easy to categorize. So did you find yourself, that was what was driving you forward, is they had to figure out, which did they have to figure out first, the why of it or the who of it?
Well, in this case, I think they fairly quickly figured out the why of it. They didn't entirely know the who of it, but it almost didn't matter because what they needed to do was to, rescue Connie. And because when somebody is kidnapped, I mean, you don't know what's going on with that person. It could be horrific. There could be, other circumstances. You let it go on too long. I mean, who knows? They could get desperate. So it really is a race against time, to a large extent in the book.
Well, I think all kidnappings are. You worry that, if the ransom isn't paid, that the kidnappers will, panic and dispose of whoever they kidnapped because they don't want to get caught. I mean, there's a lot of bad things there. You're in Trenton, New Jersey. So has Trenton changed? I mean, the story has Trenton changed much over this is after all, 29, 30 years that you've been writing them.
Yeah, well, especially the Burg, because most of the action takes place in the Burg, which is a real place in Trenton. I mean, it's Chambersburg, and it has boundaries, and I talk about the boundaries, in some of the books if readers are careful. And that has absolutely changed. The Burg that I write about is the Burg maybe, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago, when originally it was an Italian enclave. And it had a lot of great Italian restaurants, and it was a place you could go to, play the numbers. And there was some mob guys, living there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe even 50 years ago, maybe even 40 years ago, but it's an evolving neighborhood. It's an immigrant neighborhood. And so the Burg is actually very different now. There aren't all of the Italian restaurants there anymore. There's maybe a Portuguese restaurant here and there, and there's some other kind of a deli. Italian People's Bakery is still there. They're still making cannoli and Italian cookies. And, there are still some things that are there. I think it's maybe even more of a melting pot, that there are lots of different kinds of immigrants and nationalities in there now. And it's still definitely a blue collar little neighborhood. Trenton at large, I'm not sure how Trenton at large has changed. I certainly, because I don't spend a lot of time in Trenton. I still have relatives in New Jersey. And if I want to do research, it's mostly centers around the Burg. I work with a big map, to look at where the hospitals are and where would they be. And, where's a cemetery, because, a cemetery plays a role in this. And I have to make sure that, even though it's fiction and I change places, I make sure that nobody can find where Stephanie's house actually is in the Burg, because we don't want people showing up on their, doorstep and saying, can I see your kitchen? So I fictionalize some of it, but other places have to have some bit of reality to it.
So how big a place do you, to have a bail bondsman, there for all this time, is there, does it need certain kind of community size to support having a bail bondsman, or, it doesn't seem to me, is there a lot more crime? Is that why they need a bail bondsman, or is a bail bondsman going to be found everywhere? I don't really know.
I think bail bonds can be found everywhere. As it happens, and when I first started this series, this was a very viable business, and there were several in Trenton. They no longer have a cash bail bond system in Trenton. Many states have done away with it, and so they have a different sort of system, which actually, I think works fairly well. It's sort of complicated. I'm not going to get into all the details now, but they don't have the same kind of bail bonds that I have in my book. Again, that's when I started this series, 29, 30 years ago, and I did research. I hung out with the cops. I hung out with the bail bondsmen. I went around with bounty hunters. And that's really what I'm still writing about. But that system no longer exists in New Jersey, and in several other states too. And there's this big push for defund the police and change the the whole bond system. And I don't want to get into that because I have, my own feelings about that too, which I work very hard at keeping my politics out of my books. I think that I'm an entertainer. I see my role as being entertainment, as I'm the happy writer. You know that my books are going to end well. You know that I'm going to have good people in there. I mean, bad people too, but my hero is good. My heroine is good. They have a crazy family, but they're all basically good people. It's a book about community, whether that community is family, whether it's the people that you work with, whether it's the community that you live in. And these are the things that I put in my book. And I actually work pretty hard at keeping politics out of it because I just don't see my role as being that of telling people how to vote or how to think. I think everybody has to figure that one out for themselves. So I try to avoid the issues of, because the police that I write about in my books are good. Joe Morelli is a good cop. He works hard. He believes in what he does. And that's the ideal, right? That's the cop that we want. I mean, we want people like that out there protecting us, caring about us, being excited about the job, about being able to contribute to the community, So I guess in many ways, I'm writing about the ideal, about the way we would all like it to be. And maybe it can be, if we all work together at it. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember, but the last time we did an event together live, which must have been in November of 2019, you talked about, what people expect an Evanovich book to be, what your fans expect it to be. And I think you just summed that up. And, phrases that I run across from your fans are like, it's comfort reading, it's entertainment reading, it's a safe place to go. And I agree that I think if you're writing a really long running series like this that keeps bringing people back, there has to be a big emotional connection with it.
Yeah, I think that people get attached to the characters.
Mm-hmm.
They like them. They like having the comfort of that entertainment level. But Stephanie, I mean, Stephanie is a pretty average person, and I think we all pretty much know Stephanie and her family. I kind of took it right out of my own experience, and I think that I'm a very average person. We're all very close to that whole immigration movement, whether it's Hispanics today or, for me, it was Eastern Europeans that, flooded into this country. I'm second generation American and, had the same values and had the same work ethic and, work to each generation to make a little bit of progress at achieving the American dream. And I think, this resonates with people. They understand this. They want to be a part of it. And the characters are appealing. I mean, of course I have, two sexy guys and everybody likes to read about that. That's right out of my romance days. But then, then there's Stephanie. And then of course there's Lula, who, can just get away with saying and doing anything because Lula, that's who Lula is. Lula is about attitude, and she has this just great attitude about her. She can't be defeated. She's sure that she's going to lose weight and she's going to be a supermodel. And then when that doesn't happen, then she's sure that she can go to college and be a lawyer. When that doesn't happen, then she's sure that she's such a positive character. She's just always out there, and she's kind of like a big grandma, right? Because both of them feel like they can be what they want to be. They can wear what they want to. Lula can wear her short spandex too tight dresses and just look great at it, okay, because she has that attitude. It's like grandma who at her age, if she wants to wear Pilates pants and a sports bra or whatever, she can dye her hair red. I went gray, grandma went red. She can do that.
Well, she can. And don't you think that's the multi-generational? I mean, it's not like they're all the same age. So you're able to bring in different attitudes and different aspects for these characters because of the span, from Grandma to Stephanie. My own mother was a lot like Grandma Mazur, and she loved Grandma Mazur. She always,
Yeah.
really enjoyed reading about her. And I used to sort of chortle and wonder to myself if she saw herself as Grandma Mazur the way I saw her as Grandma Mazur, but I never brought it up.
And I think, this is true for a lot of people when I go out on tour, and I look at the people at the signings, and we have so many multi-generational groups coming through, whole families, great grandmothers, grandmothers, moms, kids, that are all reading the books. They're all sharing it, and they're all liking it for, and a lot of them are laughing, because one of them is Grandma Mazur,
Right.
and one of them is Stephanie, and one is the mom. I mean, the poor mom, she's the adult in the family. She's the only real adult in the family.
She's the pivot, which sort of on which it all hinges. You probably wouldn't remember, but I think the first time we did a live event together, maybe it was book 7, somewhere along in there, and we had a large space, but it quickly became too small because so many of the fans were young moms who showed up with strollers. And,
Yeah.
I watched the fire department, the librarians were hosting it, and I'll just panic as more and more people with strollers were piling in and coming up onto the stage. And we were all going, if the fire department shows up, we are toast. But,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you were really appealing to young mothers so much then. It was clear from the way they turned out. And so maybe they've brought their own children now who are young mothers along. As 30 years is a long time. 29 books is a really long arc in people's lives.
Yeah, I was at a signing on this tour, and a woman came by with a younger woman with her, and she said, "This is my daughter, and last time I saw you, she was an infant in a carriage, in a stroller," and I was like, "Oh my God," because this girl was like, in college.
I know, it's really
And
unnerving.
yeah, and now she's reading my books, and so it's just so enjoyable to see this. It's fun doesn't even describe it. I don't know. It's that you can be a part of people growing up and growing old and changing in life and going through hard times and good times, and you go out on book tour, and there they are, and you're like all part of their experience, because while they were doing all of these things, they were reading the Plum books.
They were growing up.
Yeah, it's sort of overwhelming. Sometimes they're standing there and they're talking about it, and I almost don't know what to say, because it's just a very emotional kind of thing, to be part of that, to be. And I'm like, how lucky am I? How did I ever do this? How did this ever happen to me? Because I was the weird kid. I was a total screw up in college. I graduated at the very bottom of my class in college. I mean, and my poor parents, I mean, oh my God, what they had to endure with me as a child. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I just was weird. I was always in my own world. I was an art student, and I lived at home. We couldn't afford for me to live at school, so I commuted. And I would bring all these art projects back home, right? And then my mom wouldn't know what to do with them. I mean, because, she'd have them in the attic, and eventually they'd have to get put out on the curb, for garbage pickup on Thursday. And she'd have them all wrapped in quilts, or sheets or something. She didn't want anybody to see these weird things her daughter was making. So, and here I am, and with this kind of amazing success that, that I'm attached to all of these people. I mean, it's just overwhelming sometimes. It's hard to understand how that happened, but I mean, it's a good thing, because if I didn't learn how to write books, I'd be a complete failure. I couldn't do anything else.
Well, I think, you obviously acquired a lens through all that experience, a lens that allows you to look at the world in such a way that you can write your books. If you hadn't been a weird kid, if you'd just been a normal kid doing normal things, you
Right.
probably wouldn't have developed it.
Yeah, I also think that people who achieve a certain amount of success are people that have to have that success. Like, I think if you're really well adjusted, you don't need to have the entire world love you. I mean, like, I never have enough people reading my book. It's not enough to have, people in New Jersey like it. No. I want, world conquest. The more people, the better. And I think that's, that's like sort of a sign of mental illness or something. I think if you're really well adjusted, you're happy, just being in your own little world and your family. And, but it's like me and Elon Musk, we have to keep
It's going
selling.
too far, Janet. Come
Yeah,
on.
we have to keep selling cars,
Yeah. Now, don't compare yourself to Elon Musk. That's really, ridiculous. I don't know. It's a very interesting theory. I'll have to think about that because I find myself actually trying to push back and bringing my staff forward. I don't like to be, famous, and I'm not in anywhere near the level you are. I've been doing this for a really, really long time, longer than you've been writing, actually. And so that same dynamic, I mean, I see people come into the store, that were young when we started that are now bringing their children. Or, when they were young, their mothers came in and now their mothers many of them, unfortunately, have passed on. I mean, I'm always kind of hesitant when I go down and I see, what was a child and she's now by herself. And I'm always sort of afraid to say, where's your mother or your father? Because sometimes the answer, is a difficult one. We've even had people die and leave the store money in their wills.
Wow.
I know, which I find fascinating. So
that's amazing. That's wonderful.
Well, but maybe, maybe what it is what you were talking about. I think it's about building communities. You're building communities with your books. We're building a community through your books. But, maybe it's all that sort of sense of family or creating a place where people can talk about ideas, not just about what they had for dinner. And we keep politics out of it too. Believe me, we have really tried hard not to take any kind of political stand. And it's very difficult sometimes.
Well, it's not about fame because fame actually isn't very desirable.
That's true.
When, when you're a kid, you want to be, rich and famous and you want to be a movie star and everything. But the fame part, actually, when you achieve a certain amount of notoriety, the fame part is not good. The good part is that it's just that you're enlarging your family. You're creating this communication with all of these different kinds of people, and you're contributing something. You're contributing something to their lives. I mean, nothing that big, but if I can make somebody smile and be happy for 20 seconds, I think that's pretty good. That's enough. And it's like the more people that you can touch, that you can affect that way, that's and it doesn't really have anything to do with fame. It has to do with enlarging this worldwide family, that you have, that and also that they like you. I think that's a large part of it. I think we all want people to like us, to think we're we're good, we're contributing something to their lives. And I was
faintly surprised when I realized that what we do touches lives. I went to BoucherCon, the big mystery convention in Minneapolis, and we were only there basically for a day because I had wanted to take a cruise down the Mississippi River forever. And thank God I did it because now it's drying up. But, we've been down rivers all over the world. And I said to my husband, it's time that we do the Mississippi. And the convention was in Minneapolis. So you're there, at the St. Paul to St. Louis run of cruising the Mississippi. So we just had the Friday. But it was really interesting. Everywhere I went, people that I don't know, never seen before, would come up to me and say, Thank you. You got us through the pandemic, all your Zoom events, it gave us, a place to go and things to talk about. And I thought, well, how wonderful, how really wonderful it was to been able to do that for people.
Yeah.
It's a byproduct of running, a retail bookstore. I mean, we didn't start out to be anything more than that, but it's surprising how it can blossom out in different ways.
So do you think that the pandemic changed the way people find entertainment and read? Do you think more people are reading or less people are reading, or are they reading differently?
Yes.
Because pre-pandemic, we were really in this kind of free fall with losing bookstores, losing, major chain bookstores, everybody moving into Amazon, and then even people moving into Facebook and to other forms of, entertainment rather than buying and reading books. And then the pandemic came, and I felt like there was a shift.
I think you're right. And what's really interesting, we started out to be, mine, as you know, was never intended to be a commercial bookstore. It just kind of turned out that way. But we started out with a specialty of crime fiction because I thought in 1989, when Barnes & Noble was really blossoming up, based on my experience with law and so forth, that it was very difficult to be a generalist. You really needed to be more of a specialist if you were going to have an impact. So I thought, mystery was the thing I knew a lot. My mother, who was still alive then and lives here, knew it a lot. And so that's what we became. And we kind of stayed in that channel. We expanded it slightly to thrillers. Then Clive expanded it into adventure. Diana expanded us into Outlander, which is unclassifiable, but basically that was our core. During the pandemic, I do the restock reports every week to see what sells. The first thing I noticed was that classics, not just crime classics, but classics all across the board, were really selling. People were finally going to read War and Peace or whatever. So big uptake in classics. So we went from a small selection to a very large selection. The other category that has really blossomed up is self-help. It never occurred to me that the Poison Pen would sell a single self-help book, but now it's really blossomed out. Poetry has become a subsection. We only have so much room in the store, so I have to be careful, but poetry has become one. And the other really good news, the best news about it all, is the astonishing amount of children's and young adult literature that we sell. We never did that before, and now the turnover is tremendous. And I find myself ordering all sorts of things that wouldn't have occurred to me 5 years ago or 4 years ago that, we would order and sell. And that brings in, Janet, different readers. It's a different community. Now we're getting moms and strollers looking for picture books, or we have a group of teenagers, they're all tattooed with exotic hairdos and the whole bit, but they're over there in the young adult section. And at Halloween last year, not this immediate one, we live in a gated community, so we don't have a lot of callers. And so I was just turning off the lights so we could sit down and have dinner, and the doorbell rang and I opened it. And there were all these teenagers there, and they were all in costumes and, the whole bit. And I opened the door and they looked at me and they went, "Poison Pen." And I thought, they have never seen me at the bookstore. So the only way that they could have recognized me was that they were watching all the Zoom events, because they had not seen me live. I'm not there on Saturday. And I thought, wow, that is so different.
Yeah. Do you think that they're still watching Zoom, or do you think that now that things have opened up, they're moving away from the screen?
I think I really don't know. It's a big question that we are asking ourselves is, what is our audience going to be? We are finding that our virtual audience keeps going up and our in-store audience is not as large as it was. But the book sales have held absolutely steady or gone up. So somehow or other, it's just working differently. But Phoenix is a city, Janet, that has no public transportation. People have to drive. So they're affected by the price of gas, by weather, by a whole bunch of stuff. And, the city fathers are going, wow, we're going to have the Super Bowl, which we are in February. And I'm going, oh my God, nobody will come to anything because they won't even be able to get, across town. So I shifted everything for that week, to a virtual event because it's bulletproof. Um, and I don't know how it's going to go. I miss the larger live audiences, but the virtual audiences have been so responsive and so interesting. I just can't tell how
Well,
that,
we all got used to buying online too. I
Yeah.
mean, people buy everything online, food.
yeah.
They pull shopping lists into the food store and other people gather it up and
Sure.
and deliver it. And I mean, I buy tons of stuff online that 3 years ago I would never have. And now I'm used to it and I like it. It gives me more time for one thing. And for another, with the supply chain, sometimes you go out to a store and you can't find anything.
Well,
And
that's
so
true.
just mentally, I mean, I think mentally we have all come to accept this new way of living.
I think you're right, but I also think that people are social animals. And I do think that the impetus to go out and mingle personally, I think it's going to slowly come back. I mean, it's not that I agree with you for convenience and all kinds of things, shopping online. I do it myself to a much greater degree than I ever did before. But I guess that's a question is, what is it we're actually selling at the bookstore? Are we selling books or are we selling, in fact, conversation and community? And the book is the access to that. And so, should we be focusing on perhaps fewer events and more sort of community kinds of gatherings? I don't know. I feel like we're really in transition and I don't have any answers to it yet.
I don't either. I think, I mean, the good thing about, your bookstore is, I mean, what you're selling is you're helping people to find the right book. You're helping to enlarge their horizons, because you go into a large chain store or a box store and they're all displayed there and it's confusing. You don't know what to go. I mean, okay, so you've heard a couple names and you go to those names, James Patterson but for the most part, people who want to read a book, it's like going to Netflix, and trying to find something to watch on television. And so the service that you provide when someone comes into the store, I mean, you can't get that online. They can come up to, people in your store and say, I want to read a really good mystery. I like this kind of book. Do you have any more like that? And you can help them. So, and we need more of that. That's the missing ingredient today after the pandemic, I think, is that we've lost a lot of that. And we need to get a lot of that back, whether, not just in books, but in, lots of other things, lots of aspects of life. We need to get back to people helping us find what it is that we want.
I think that's true. I mean, we are ruthless communicators. I write to them endlessly. People always say to me, why don't you write a book? And I think, when would I fit it in? all the stuff that I'm already writing. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're not robots, we're not algorithms, and we actually read the books that we sell. And I think that does make a difference. But I think trustworthiness has become a big question, with all of the deep fakes and all the rest of it. Can people rely on you to be what you say you are? And, I think that's true in your books too. I think people can rely, let's go back to your books instead of the bookstore. I think people can rely, on you being honest with them, with your characters, being real people. Even though they're fictional. And I did want to ask you before we call up Patrick, you brought in some new quirky supporting characters. And I really like the guy who dresses up at Lancelot. I mean, that was inspired. Where did he come from?
Yeah, well, don't we all want to go around, dressing up like Maid Marian and Lancelot and being heroes? I mean, this goes back to, another theme for me is, heroes.
Yeah.
Because I think heroes are so important in life, and we have, little heroes all over the place. I think that a man who goes to work every day and brings back a paycheck and supports his family is very heroic. And then we have people like this guy who has, he wants to be a hero, and he has, he has a fantasy life, and he's kind of like, Lula and Grandma Mazer. He's willing to put himself out there and put on his Saint Lancelot a costume and live the life, and go out and protect Stephanie, stand in her hallway with his sword, and make sure that she comes to no harm. And so I mean, heroic people always find their way into my books in some way or another, and that's just kind of an offshoot of it. That's kind of the most obvious, but I thought he was fun too. I like that guy.
Absolutely. I think one of the fun things about reading your books is you're never quite sure who you are. I mean, some of whom you're going to meet and you want to see them again, but then there's always the possibility that somebody like Lancelot's going to come along that you will not. You also are pretty consistent with the food thing. There are donuts, there's chicken in a bucket, I'm trying to remember, do we have an exploding car?
I'm sorry, do we have any what?
Is there an exploding car? I'm trying to remember because I read this book some time ago. Is there a car?
Well, she destroys Ranger's Porsche.
Okay.
Grandma Bella actually gets in the car. Stephanie arrests Grandma Bella at the funeral home, and she's transporting her in Ranger's car, and she steps out, and Grandma Bella gets behind the wheel and drives the car off and impales it on a tree, and the car catches fire, and Ranger's car is nothing more than a little melted plastic on the ground by the time he gets there. I love when I can destroy, Ranger's cars. I mean, I always have to destroy cars in the books. People would be disappointed if I didn't. I would too. But when the Ranger's car, it's even more fun.
Absolutely true. And then one final thing, I noticed that there was a lot of anxiety and a constant debate. Is it going to be Morelli or Ranger? People keep waiting for Stephanie to make a choice. Isn't there a third character that's sort of out there too, who's just a faint possibility, or am I misremembering? Didn't you have some other hunky guy?
Diesel.
Okay, right.
Diesel from the Wicked series. Diesel originated in the Plum series. Diesel was in the Between the Numbers books. And then he went off to have his own series in the Wicked series. I did 3 of those, I think. And I could never get back to him, but he's actually my favorite guy. Well, my new favorite guy is Rafer in The Recovery Agent. But Rafer is Diesel in disguise. I mean, Rafer and Diesel have a lot in common. I couldn't get back to the Wicked series, so I put a lot of Diesel into Rafer, because they're just these big scruffy guys that that are lovable, but they're also a little annoying, maybe a little sarcastic sometimes, and but still, very special, and again, heroic in their own way. So but I like that there's that tension, and that is probably the hardest part about the series, is keeping that going. I mean, oh my God, I'm on book 30, Dirty 30, and it's Dirty 30, and and I'm still trying to keep the excitement of the relationship alive between these 3 people. It's like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't believe I've been doing this for all these years.
It's a very tough act to follow. And I think readers would be disappointed if you ever come down, and say, this is it. So probably you'll keep it.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I would have to turn it into like a family saga, and then she would get pregnant, and there would be babies. And then, and I can't see that.
We don't want to go there. Patrick, do you want to come join us and see if there are questions? And also you can show the cool keychain that we got to go with our autographed copies.
Absolutely. Yep. See if I can see if it shows. Ding, ding, ding. Can you see it there?
There
it is. Yeah.
Very nice. Yep.
Got a whole bag of them. So everybody gets one with their book, and a cool bookmark, and chocolate if you're in the store.
And the staff hasn't aced you out.
Staff hasn't.
It wasn't intended for staff. We need to have some sort of standards, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
I ate my share at book signings, I have to admit. Yeah.
It's a great wrapper. That gold coin thing is really
Yeah,
good looking.
it's good.
There are a lot of people chiming in. A lot of just really nice comments. Gina says, I really loved seeing some new alliances and got to know Bella better. She says, I was also so happy to see Stephanie realizing that she's gotten better at her job.
Mhm.
Nice
Okay.
comment. Yeah. I think Janet's hair looks terrific. A number of people weighing in.
Yay.
This is a good one. Robin says, hello, Barbara and Janet. Early in the Plum books, I shared them with my mother-in-law. I didn't warn her at all. The next morning, she came into the kitchen and asked if we heard her laughing. She read into the wee hours, but wanted to leave a bit more for the next day. Thank you so much for writing these books that we enjoy sharing. And yes, I'd also love to see more of Diesel. We have some Diesel fans in here too.
Okay, well, buy The Recovery Agent and see if Rafer reminds you of Diesel.
On cue, we still have a handful of signed copies of The Recovery Agent. So,
And also a question, is there going to be a sequel to The Recovery Agent next spring?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're trying to take it to television. I mean, that's always been the missing ingredient in my career. I had one movie, and I'm hoping it's such an ideal project for television.
Mhm.
I always felt that and the Wicked series were the two things that would be successful on the screen. And so I have a new agent, and she's working hard at it. So we'll see what happens. But there will definitely be another Recovery Agent coming out.
Great.
let's see, when you guys were talking about the Zoom versus live events, that sparked some nice responses. Tommy says, I love your Zoom events because I get to see my favorite authors that I wouldn't be able to see. I know a lot of people are in remote places that don't have many book signings, and that's a really nice benefit.
It's true.
Yeah, Robin says, I've been a book in my hand person for 50 plus years, no interest in ebooks or audiobooks. Then the pandemic, in conjunction with our retirement move, brought firmly into loving them both. I'm so very thankful for these online events. Yeah.
Let me ask Janet a quick question about your audiobooks. I noticed that several people have talked about how much they like the narrator. Janet, are you pleased with her as well?
Yeah, Lorelei King. She's been doing the books for, in the beginning we had, different actresses doing it. And then finally we found Lorelei, and she's been the voice of Stephanie for years and years. And she's become a good friend. She's great. She's an American living in London, but she's over here recording, and we get together from time to time. And she's an actress. And she was actually in Notting Hill with Julia Roberts. She was the publicist to Julia Roberts in Notting Hill. Yeah, but she's great, and I think she does an amazing job. And audio is an increasing. I find my audio sales are really picking up. I don't know if it has to do with the pandemic or what it is, but for a while there, they were kind of, stagnant, but we're seeing a lot of audio sales now. And it's the same thing. And once you hear somebody reading audio, it's like that instantly becomes the voice of that person. It's very hard for people to move away. So we're happy to have Lorelei staying with us.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think it may have to do, as people are getting more active and driving again and all the rest of it, they don't want to leave the story behind. And audiobook lets them do that. You can't drive and read or garden and read and whatever. So there's a real role for it. There's a company called Libro.fm that, in fact, its model is to share revenue from its audiobook sales with the bookstore that the customer has come from, so to speak. So it's a very small income stream, but it's nice that we get a little something from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good company. Anything else, Patrick?
Let's see. Caitlin would like to know, will you be touring closer to North Mississippi? It's a dream to meet you.
No, I'm pretty much done with my tour. I have one more event in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow. And then I go back to writing books. Then I'm not going to be touring for a while again, not until another book comes out. Although every now and then, I get invited to a special event, to a festival or whatever, and I get to go out and, have fun on a couple days and see people. But sorry, I'm done. But we'll keep that in mind for the next one.
Yeah. Have you signed in Oxford before?
I haven't. I know that's like huge because that's Grisham's
Yeah.
store, isn't it? Yeah.
Square
And
Books.
I've never been there. I would love to.
So maybe I'm not sure where in Mississippi Caitlin is, but at some point maybe you'll sign there. Who knows?
Who knows?
Let's see. Sally just has another nice comment. She says, when my husband was hospitalized, I'd read your books aloud to him, and he really enjoyed them.
Wow.
Thanks for making his illness more enjoyable.
Nice.
Yeah. Love the quirky characters. And then also, let's see, Gina says, I definitely rely on Janet and her books for something funny, but also very relatable. The characters feel like family. Can't beat that.
No,
You can't.
not at all.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying for.
What do you like to read, Janet? That's another question that's come in. Who do you read?
I read cookbooks. and I can't cook. I'm really a lousy cook, but I don't read fiction. I can't read fiction because I'm always writing my own book. And there's something about, reading. You're very active when you're reading and you become part of that story. I can watch television, I can go to the movies, and it doesn't bother me at all. But if I read fiction, I go to bed at night thinking about that story and not about mine. And when I wake up in the morning, I want to finish reading that story. I'm not writing mine. So I really don't read fiction, but I love cookbooks. I'm like a cookbook junkie, it's but I can't cook. I don't cook. Actually, I have a chef and he cooks for all of us. He cooks for, my extended family and the neighborhood and whatever. And he gives me, because then I can devote all of my time to writing books. So it's, and I'm
Has it
very
been that way for a long time?
Yeah, and I'm very popular because, I have this guy that distributes cookies and lasagna and whatever, throughout the family and the neighborhood.
I think that's about it, Barbara. I mean, there are a number of, she's touched on most of the other things. Have you already revealed what the title is going to be for the recovery agent book?
No, we don't have recovery agent. We have Plum. Plum is Dirty 30. But we haven't got a title for recovery agent. And I think recovery agent is not due to come out until 24.
Okay.
I need a longer time to write. Wait, sorry. It's my dog's pills. I don't know, could you hear the alarm go off? It takes me a longer time to write the recovery agent because I have to do research for it. And because it's a newer project and I'm still developing the characters and getting my voice as the writer for that series. So I've asked them to allow me to have more time to write that book than I write. It takes me about 5 months to write a Plum. And it takes me maybe about 9 months to write a recovery agent book. So I think it's scheduled for 24.
Well,
unless I get inspired and I, get Dirty 30 off my desk faster than I would imagine, and I just take off and, write the next one. You never know.
Do you shoot for a specific number of words every day? What's your process like?
No, sometimes 5 pages. I have a 300-word page. I try to set myself up the same way that the book looks. So I have a 300-word page, and if I do 5 pages a day, that's a good day for me. I try to always get a page a day. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes, it requires a lot of thinking, and I might get a couple sentences, but then usually the next day I'll have a good day. Maybe I'll get 5 or 6 pages. So, but I don't set, limits for myself. I don't try to achieve something until I'm late, when I'm almost done with the book and I think I'm gonna, blow my deadline. And then I'm trying to make pages, and like at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm feeling really brain dead, they throw bags of chips in at me, and with a bottle of wine. I mean, you give me a bag of Cheetos and a bottle of wine, and I am brilliant. I can rip those pages off.
Hello, come here. You can come and say hi. Oh, I've just been invaded by puppies.
Oh my.
Hi, Scooter. There you
Oh.
are. They've been locked up for an hour, so they're
Oh.
ready to roll. Aren't you, baby? You want to go? Okay.
Gorgeous.
So, they're really cute. They're Cavapoo twins, and they look absolutely nothing alike. He's all white and long and skinny, and she's black and short and muscly, and
Oh, well.
they're a real pair. And
Yeah.
our older dog has taken a long time to get used to them, but now they're like a constant rolling dervish kind of a
Oh,
thing.
that's fun. That's nice.
It is nice. Anyway, Janet, it's been lovely to see you. Thank you for spending an hour with us. And I'm so glad that we have copies for all of you. And I want to thank Janet for also taking the trouble to sign them at home and sending them to us, which is hugely appreciated. So I hope that next November, when things are calmer, we'll be able to do this live.
That would be great. I would love that.
I would too. We've really missed you. So